Hey, if you've experienced any sort of trauma in life, from a small trauma to a really big trauma, I want to tell you that there's good news. You can break free from these difficult experiences, memories, and emotions with a very powerful breakthrough brain therapy called EMDR. Hey, my name is John Clarke. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm an anxiety and trauma specialist, and in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about what is EMDR and how it might be able to help you break free from your past. Let's dive in. So the first point I want to make is, what is trauma and what happens in the brain when we experience trauma? Well, my working definition of trauma is it's just any difficult experience that kind of disrupts, or I should say suddenly disrupts, your sense of equilibrium, homeostasis, or peace. It can be anything from a sudden loss, a sudden breakup, a big difficult life transition that you didn't see coming. It could be something like a car crash or being assaulted, going to war, things like that. But what I want you to keep in mind is, again, that trauma takes many different forms. And so I don't want you to diminish experiences you've had just because it might not be going to war, right? When we start to compare our suffering to one another, it minimizes our experience and it gets in the way of us being able to work through what we've been through. The thing I want you to remember is that your suffering is relative to your life. It's no better or worse than anyone else's suffering. So what happens in the brain when we experience trauma? Well, you've probably heard of that fight, flight, or freeze mechanism, right? That we have for fighting off lions and tigers and bears and whatnot. It is that response that is part of the equation, right? So when trauma happens, when it's something sudden and disruptive, we don't have time to think about it or think, how do I feel right now? What's going through my mind? What's happening in my body, etc. In fact, different mechanisms of our body, like digestion, shut down entirely during trauma and when we're in that reactive state. Your body, your nervous system, and your brain experience these things like a threat to your existence, even if they're not actually a threat. So what does that mean for the brain, and how does this have anything to do with EMDR? Well, the idea with EMDR is that traumatic memories are just memories that are not fully processed in the brain. Think about a computer for a second. So in a computer, you have short-term memory and you have long-term memory. Short-term memory might be like the things on your desktop, right, that are constantly opened or open more often, and they're always right there on the surface. Long-term memory might be stuff that's stored deeper in your hard drive. You could call it permanent storage. Well, what happens during trauma, right, is that in this traumatized state, in this reactive state, our brains are not able to fully process memories in the way that they usually do. So what happens is traumatic memories get kind of stuck in short-term memory. This is why people re-experience, right, the emotions, the flooding, the flashbacks, etc., because it's kind of stuck in the front of your brain. We need to get it processed all the way to the back of your brain. So this woman, years and years ago, was walking through a park, and she noticed, as she was thinking about something difficult, that her eyes started going from a tree to the left to a tree on the right, or something like this. I might be missing a couple details here and there. But what she noticed is, when her eyes were going from left to right, she started to feel some relief. This was a massive discovery. She then took this into her research and over time developed this technique called EMDR. EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. There's something about stimulating both sides of the brain that is therapeutic and helps memories go from short-term to long-term. So in Francine Shapiro's case, the way it started was using the eyes going left to right, similar to what our eyes do in REM sleep every night. Now, there's a lot we don't know about REM sleep, REM sleep, but what we do know is what happens if you don't have it, right? It really messes with your equilibrium, your emotional well-being, right? People really start to unravel quickly when they don't have good sleep, especially for an extended period of time. So there's something about sleeping that's very restorative. Therefore, there's something about stimulating both sides of the brain that is also restorative. So what EMDR does, it's not a talk therapy, it's a brain therapy. In fact, one of the great benefits is you don't have to just talk at length about what happened to you in order for EMDR to be effective for you. In EMDR, you might just start by calling up a particular part of the difficult memory, and then your therapist is going to stimulate both sides of your brain. This could be with eye movements, so they could just have you follow their finger back and forth like this. On the other hand, they could use paddles, right, that vibrate in either hand. Same thing, it's still stimulating both sides of the brain. Maybe you're holding those paddles and you're looking back and forth. Maybe you're tapping like this. They call it the butterfly hug, tapping on both sides. Maybe you're doing EMDR online, so you're looking at your screen and they have a tool where a little ball is going back and forth and back and forth All you're doing is you're holding the memory in mind, you're following along, right? You're stimulating both sides of the brain, and then at the end of each set, your therapist will ask you, what do you notice? This is the way that we desensitize difficult memories. Process and process and process, do bilateral stimulation, continue to revisit the memory until we dull it all the way down. Now this doesn't mean that your memory will be completely gone or anything like that. It just means it goes from a clear color picture to a dulled down black and white picture. Ideally, we get you to a place where you can talk about the difficult things that happen without the flashbacks, the flooding, the re-experiencing of everything. EMDR is such a powerful, powerful method, and I highly encourage you to seek out a therapist who can help you get started with EMDR. Again, it's a powerful, potent brain therapy. It helps those memories go from short-term memory to long-term memory so that you can get on with your life. I hope this was helpful. What do you think about EMDR? Have you tried it? Are you thinking about trying it? Let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, hit that subscribe button, and thank you for watching this video. Again, I'm John Clarke, licensed therapist. I'm an anxiety and trauma specialist, and I appreciate you being here. See you soon.